Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is your boy Fitzmonk TV here, aka G-Lawrence33. I'm back here today with another video on the channel for you guys today. And today, we are talking Black Panther 2, aka Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And I'm going to be giving you guys a full review / reaction to the film today. You guys know I am a big MCU guy. I like to do Marvel videos here and there to switch things up. And this, of course, for me personally, was the most hyped film of the year. You know, we've gotten some really good films from, the Batman and Black Adam, Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness, Thor, Love and Thunder, etc., etc. I know some people are hyped for, Avatar: The Way of the Water, which is going to be like the longest movie in history, longer than Endgame, when that movie comes out in December. But for me, this was the film I was most excited about, Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. And there's so much to dive into when it comes to this film, right? Of course, we're going to talk about the film itself and, Chadwick Boseman and how they pay tribute to his legacy as T'Challa. They honored not only Chadwick Boseman in this movie, but his character himself. And there's a lot to talk about here. But I'm very excited, so definitely sit back and relax. And let's talk about Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. As always, guys, make sure to leave a like on this video if you guys enjoy. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe by hitting the big red button and by clicking the bell icon next to my name, Fitzmonk TV, so you guys are notified every time I post a new video. Also, follow me down on social media. The links are in the description down below. And of course, give me your thoughts on the movie in the comments section, and let's have a healthy discussion. So, first things first, right? First things first, and there's a lot to dive into when we get into this film. And usually I want to keep these reviews, kind of semi-short, but you guys know me, I can talk for a long time, and this could easily go over an hour if necessary. But first things first, where do I rank this movie in the grand scheme of MCU movies, right? There's a lot, right? I think we're at the point, and I'm pulling up my list on my phone, we're at the point where there is about 30 MCU movies. I don't know if I'm forgetting any, but I have about 30 movies on my list. I don't count the MCU TV shows. Those are separate. But just talking about the movies, right? And where does this rank on my list? Well, I do have it in my top 10. I do have it in the top 10. I'll read off the list for you guys right now. Number 1, Endgame. Number 2, Infinity War. Number 3, No Way Home. Number 4, Civil War. Number 5, Black Panther 1, the first Black Panther movie, the one with Chadwick Boseman. Number 6, the first Avengers movie. Number 7, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Number 8, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And then rounding up the top 10, I have the first Iron Man movie, the movie that started the MCU at 9. And then number 10, Avengers Age of Ultron. So, yes, I had to think hard. I've seen this film twice. I saw it on opening night, and then I saw it again later that weekend with some friends. And I usually try, especially when it comes to, like big Marvel movies, like Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, and things of that nature. I try to see these movies twice in theaters. There's some Marvel movies where I'm okay with just seeing it once and then watching it again once it comes out on Disney Plus. But, this was a movie I knew I needed to see multiple times. It being one of the most hyped films of the year. I knew that definitely, some people were going to come out of this right away. And then, of course, recency bias. They're going to come out and say, oh, this is the best movie in the MCU. Oh, this is better than Black Panther 1. And then they coming out of the first Black Panther movie, or coming out of this movie, I definitely had some of those thoughts. I really loved this film. And was it perfect? No. But for at least a couple seconds, I was like, is this better than the first Black Panther movie? But after seeing it the second time, I've come to the conclusion that it's not. Even though it is, Black Panther is in my top 5. And I have Wakanda Forever only 3 spots down at number 8. But But I really had to sit and think, and I think the thing that was missing from this movie, and not really surprised, is Chadwick Boseman. Right, we've heard so much from Ryan, the director, and everybody, the cast, the staff. This movie, would have been a little bit different if Chadwick was in it. Because remember, Chadwick was supposed to be the centerpiece of this film, right? This was supposed to be a character study, to see how T'Challa was dealing with being king of Wakanda again after the event of Infinity War and Endgame and coming back to life after being dusted, right? And and that was gonna more deal with Wakanda having issues with other people in the world because people wanting vibranium, right? And of course Namor and all that. So the story itself wouldn't have looked that different, but this movie was missing Chadwick, and you knew that this was gonna be a huge thing for everybody because I especially the second time I saw this film, I just kept, it's like so many scenes I kept imagining, oh, what if Chadwick was here? What if Chadwick was there, right? I can see T'Challa giving a speech here. I can see T'Challa giving a quote here, and it made it difficult, and I can't even imagine what it was like for that cast, they speak so highly of Chadwick and his character, his personality, what it was like for them, to film that movie, knowing that, they were doing this for Chadwick, for his legacy, and that, he was on their minds and their hearts, right? It's difficult. It's difficult, but I feel like, they did a great job playing the Chadwick's character. And of course, I should have said this at the beginning, we are going to get into spoilers here in just a moment. So if you guys have not seen the film, make sure you guys click off the video and then come back over once you guys have seen it for yourselves. But I think they did a really good job paying tribute to Chadwick's legacy, especially the beginning and the end, right? The beginning and the end, those are specific for Chadwick. The movie starts with, T'Challa's death and then the funeral and all that. And then there's a time skip to about a year later to see how Wakanda is doing post T'Challa's death and, world relations. And then at the end of the movie, the very end, we get one of my favorite post-credit scenes ever in MCU history. We get the end of like Shuri's character arc for this film. And we get one more tribute to Chadwick, but we also get like a continuation, and his legacy kind of in the MCU is kind of set in stone. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But yeah, I have this in the top 10. It's not a top 5 film for me, but if you're in my top 10, that means I can watch you any day of the week. No complaints, no questions asked. Really, at this point, when I look at my MCU list in general, if you're in really my top 20, or not even, if you're in my top 22 out of 30 films, I can watch you, almost any day of the week and just have a good time. Those are MCU films that I have no problem watching at any time with a friend, a family member, a girlfriend, whatever, right? If you're like past 22 on my list, that's when you get into that questionable / bad range, in my opinion. But I do plan on making a video where I just talk about Phase 4 and what was good, what was bad, the future with Phase 5 and things of that nature. So we'll talk more about this list, in the future. But let's get back to this Black Panther, right? Like I said, there's so much to get into. But getting it on the film, right? Some of the things of the film. The film itself, this is a long film. It's about 2 hours and 45 minutes. I would say about 2 hours and 35 minutes, really, because there is a lot of credits. You have the post-credit scene, right? But there's only one credit scene. And like I said, it's like one of the best credit scenes in the history of the MCU, in my opinion. So if you haven't seen the film yet, you can leave right after, watching that credit scene. And I do think, yes, it was a great film. It's in my top 10, but there was a small part that I think they could have, took out to lessen the runtime, because it is a long film. and it's really kind of in the middle. And this is, like I said, now we're getting the spoilers. Um, when Shuri and Namor they go to Talokan, the underwater scene. First off, the visual of Talokan was amazing. I think I compared it to Atlantis. If you guys have seen Atlantis in the Aquaman movie, that's what I was comparing it to. And the visuals of Atlantis and Talokan, right? These underwater cities and environments, they're two completely different things. And to me personally, I think that Talokan looks so much better than how Atlantis did in the Aquaman movie, and you know, um, and yes, even though I like the visual, it's like I want to say it's around 15 minutes where yes, they're explaining Namor's background, and they're getting like kind of like sure to understand what Talokan is and why Talokan is so important to Namor, but I felt like it just dragged for a little bit, right? After, of course, Nakia comes and she like rescues Riri Williams and Shuri, and that's really when the film picks up because afterwards that's when we get Namor attacks Wakanda. But I felt like a little bit they could have lessened that. I understand why that's in the film. Of course, you need to explain what Talokan is, and you got because they do a really good job of making you understand why Namor does some of the things he does in this film. Right? He's not a bad guy, and if you've read the comics, you know that Namor, he's an Avenger at times, he's an anti-hero, but he's not really a villain. Even though he floods Wakanda in this movie, and he's also done that in the comics. And we all know in the comics he has a huge rivalry with T'Challa. They're rarely ever to get on the same page. But even so, I think they could have lessened that. I think that part of the movie did drag. That was easily the most boring part of the film, and I think they could have made that part a little bit shorter because it is a long movie. It's not as long as Endgame, but you definitely by the time you get to the end of the film, you do feel like you've been there for a very very long amount of time. The film itself, but yeah, then the hype. This movie does live up to the hype. Definitely this was one of the most anticipated sequels in MCU history, right? Of course, with the success of Black Panther 1 and what it did from a culture standpoint, this film does deliver. It does deliver. Like I said, there are some weak points, which we'll get into more in a little bit, but it does deliver. The hype was there, and I think most people that have seen the film or will see the film, will not be disappointed. Um, the plot, the plot is kind of simple. Not a, it's really not a difficult plot. It picks up after Endgame, and it a direct sequel to the first Black Panther movie. Where yes, even though T'Challa was dead, Wakanda still has to move forward, and really it dives into the relationships that Wakanda has with the rest of the world. You knew that the second that Wakanda started sharing vibranium, that other nations would want to get their hands on more vibranium, right? Because of weapons and all that. And it's exactly what T'Challa was scared about, and some of the other people in the first Black Panther movie. Killmonger wanted to use those resources to get that to other Black Americans or other Black Africans around the world, so that they could fight back against their oppressors. But as you can see, human nature tends to be selfish, right? We can be arrogant. And you really see some of these nations in this movie, like French and even the U.S. They want to get their hands on vibranium for very, very dangerous desires, and it's what T'Challa was scared about, because sharing those resources in the world, if something happens, right, it could fall back on Wakanda because of the vibranium being shared. So definitely you see that, and definitely this is something I easily think they're gonna set up for Black Panther 3. I definitely think that the plot for Black Panther 3 has already been, set in stone in a way, or at least been started. Because I think this is all leading to like a mini world war in the MCU, where you're gonna have multiple nations come after Wakanda, and then we may even see some Avengers and some other heroes attacking Wakanda, in future movies, just so other nations can attempt to get their hands on vibranium. That's where I think we're heading, and I think we may see this set up even more in the Ironheart series, the Thunderbolts movie, and then eventually Black Panther 3, which I think it's more likely that we'll get that maybe like 2025, 2026. So yeah, and around 3-4 years. um but yeah, definitely it's a simple plot, and also because of vibranium and other nations attempting to get vibranium by their own needs, right? That causes one nation to get too close to Namor's underwater city and then that forces Namor to catch the Wakandans, and he feels like the Wakandans owe him because he blames the Wakandans for people even thinking about getting their hands on vibranium and going underwater. So Namor thinks that Wakanda should help him, right? That they should be allies to protect each other's nations. But of course, Wakanda wants to do things on their own. They don't want to be involved with Namor, but Namor kind of doesn't give them a choice. Either it cuts to the point where Namor says that either Wakanda will join forces with Talokan, or that Wakanda will end up like the rest of the world, and be destroyed by Namor and his people. His Namor does have a fierce army. Yes, the Wakanda army is pretty big itself, but it's not close to the size of the Talokan army, right? And they made that clear in this film. But for the most part, it's a simple plot. It's not something that is hard to understand for somebody that might be new to the MCU or new to the Black Panther franchise. It's mainly a simple plot. It deals with the aftermath of T'Challa's death and how people move forward, right? Wakanda's place in the world, and it is an expansion movie. It involves multiple continents, multiple countries, right? Multiple nations, and it does build the world of the MCU more on Earth. It does set up a lot for the future. So the visuals are beautiful in this film. If you thought the visuals for Black Panther 1 were beautiful, they're just as beautiful in this film. Very, very cool stuff. The VFX team did great. The artwork is amazing. Wakanda looks even better than it did in the first movie, and it's beautiful stuff. Like I said, I already talked about this earlier. Talokan, the underwater city. I absolutely love the way they made it look in this film, and for the most part, they did a great job. There are some weird CGI moments, right? Of course, CGI where you're seeing it more and more in films every single day, and it's hard to have perfect CGI. There are some wacky scenes of Ironheart's suit in this movie. Her suit could look better at times, but like I said, it can be hard. CGI is not easy to master. I do sometimes think that some people try too hard when it comes to CGI, because there's been CGI now for years. It was there at the beginning of the MCU. But I think sometimes they just try too hard when it comes to the CGI to try to make something look real, and sometimes it actually causes them to make mistakes and make things look a little more fake than they should. But for the most part, the visuals, the VFX is pretty good. The music here, I don't even have to go into the music. We all thought what Kendrick Lamar did in, with the Black Panther album in the first movie was great. This movie, the music in this film is better, right? And there's a lot of, there's a lot of evolved music from the first Black Panther movie that is in this movie as well, which is pretty cool to see. But the music is beautiful. You get, your Wakanda music. They even have T'Challa's music in for a couple scenes when they're paying tribute to him, right? And then, of course, Rihanna's song "Lift Me Up" at the end of the movie is super emotional. It almost makes you want to burst out the tears. The music is really good in the action scenes, um in the big scenes, the big emotional scenes. I think my favorite track outside of like the Rihanna one was, of course, when Shuri becomes Black Panther. Officially. I think that's probably my favorite scene in the entire film, outside of the post credit scene. I absolutely just love that scene. How Shuri takes the heart shaped herb, right? Goes into the other world, where meets up with Killmonger, which we'll talk about in just a sec, and then wakes up, and then finally becomes Black Panther, makes her black and gold suit, which looks absolutely beautiful. It looks better than T'Challa's suits, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm jealous because like I think that if Chadwick was alive and was in this film, he probably would have got a black and gold suit like this. Like Shuri's suit looks absolutely stunning, like to every little detail, the black, the gold, the gray, you know, absolutely stunning. But yeah, the scene when she becomes, Black Panther, and then like she appears in front of the council, right, in her new suit, and then she arm wrestles Mabaku. The music there is amazing, and I absolutely love it. It's my favorite scene in the movie, and I think the music helps amplify that to such a large degree. Definitely one of my favorite scenes in the MCU, and definitely my favorite scene in this movie. Uh, Yeah. But let's get into the characters, right? Let's get into the characters themselves, and that really helps us, get into the story, because we can talk about the story by talking about the characters. So we're really going to get into spoilers now. So the way I like to do these, I like to go one by one with each character, talk about the performance, talk about some of the scenes that they were in. So let's start off with Latia Wright, right, aka Shuri. She was the star of this film. It is kind of like an ensemble cast. There is a big cast to this film, but she is the star. She is the main protagonist, right? And the thing we understand is, I read a report that when Ryan Coogler and Marvel, when they first approached her about her being the new Black Panther, she was generally surprised, which just shows she has a lot of humility to her, right? We heard a lot. We heard a lot about, there was talks that Marvel was gonna let her go. We heard about she remember I think she broke her wrist on set, and they had to take a break from shooting for a couple months, right? So there was a lot that was happening. There was thoughts that she was not going to even come back because of COVID vaccinations and all that. Uh, but all in all, I'm glad that they made it work out, because this it already didn't feel right not having T'Challa and not having Chadwick Boseman in it with his sad passing. But if they had lost Latia Wright, I don't even know if this film would have been able to happen. To be honest. You sure you could have, made M'Baku Black Panther, or maybe Okoye or Nakia, but it would not have felt right. It would not have felt right. If you read the comics, you know that Shuri is Black Panther in the comics. There's multiple storylines when it's her and not T'Challa. So it made perfect sense for it to be her, right? If they were not going to have T'Challa going forward, with Chadwick being gone, Latia Wright had to be the one to step up. And it does kind of surprise me that she was surprised that they asked her to be the new Black Panther. But I don't know, maybe she might not be that into comic books or things of that nature. But I feel like we all knew that, bearing some big, failure or circumstance, it had to be her. Right, you could have said Killmonger, but they didn't resurrect him in this film. He does come back, but he's not resurrected. But Latia Wright, Shuri being the new Black Panther, is perfect. Her suit looked, absolutely amazing. Like I said, I think I like her suit better than T'Challa's suit, right? And I would have loved to see. A T'Challa version of the suit. you see a male version of the black golden grace. Dude, I absolutely love the look of it. It's absolutely amazing. But um but anyway, back to the film itself. Shuri is great. She had to be the main protagonist here. And the film follows her journey dealing with her brother's death, and then slowly she doesn't want to become queen or anything like that. She just wants to use technology to help her people. And she fails because, as smart as she is, she's a genius, right? Even some people believe she's smarter than Tony Stark's Iron Man. uh she is unable to come up with a cure to save her brother. Right? That's how the film starts, and then the film starts with T'Challa's passing, and you can see her just get absolutely emotional. And if the film follows her, her journey to not being able to save her brother and dealing with that, but also having to step up and be there for Wakanda, right? And then of course, her performance when in the middle of the movie, right, Queen Ramonda dies. That scene where she just comes in, that scene, I legitimately almost cried when I saw this scene, because, man, imagine, it made me think about my parents, right? And what if I lost my mom? How would I react in that instance? And seeing her run in, and her having to be held back by Nakia, right? And just looking at her dead mom, it's emotional as hell, right? Her just yelling, "Mama, Mama," and you gotta think about it. This is somebody. Look at it. Shuri's gotten the Thor treatment. She's been in 4 films. Thor's been in almost 10, right? But she's gotten the Thor treatment. Thor lost everything. And that was a big part of his character arc, going into Infinity War and Endgame and past that, and even into, Love and Thunder, when he loses his girlfriend. Thor lost Loki like 3 times, right? Thor also lost his mom. In the second Thor movie, he lost his dad in the third Thor movie, right? Endgame, or no, in Infinity War, he lost half his people when Thanos wrecked his ship, right, and killed like half the Asgardians. Thor also lost his girlfriend, Jane Foster, in Love and Thunder. So Thor's lost almost everything that's important to him. They've given Shuri that treatment, right? And I don't think they meant it, of course, but Shuri lost her father, Civil War. She lost T'Challa, at the beginning of this movie, and in the middle of this movie, she loses her mom. So her entire biological family is pretty much gone. Her mom, her dad, her brother, all gone, right? And that's emotional. That's emotional. That hits deep, and Letitia Wright does an amazing job displaying those emotions. The only other person in this film that I think that you can argue has a better performance than Letitia Wright is Angela Bassett, and I'll get into her in a little bit. But Letitia Wright gives a very, very emotional performance. She does a great job here as the protagonist. I'm so glad that they were able to work things out with her and Marvel. All right, and if I'm Marvel, I would give her a raise. I would give her a raise, especially if she is going to be the Black Panther going forward, right? Going to Black Panther 3, going into the Avengers movies and whatever else they have planned. I know that we got some Wakanda spin-offs being planned, with Okoye and other characters. But yeah, like I said, going forward, I think you really need to look into, giving her a raise, because she's going to be a big character going forward. Even if they eventually recast T'Challa, and I've always said, if you're going to recast T'Challa, you just do it with the multiverse, right? Bring in another version of T'Challa through the multiverse and do things that way. But there's different ways that they can do it. But at least right now, right, going forward, you gotta make her a focal point in the hierarchy of MCU power. Like I said, she gives a very, very great emotional performance, beginning to end. And yeah. Anyway, like I said, there's great performance all around. From Lethea Wright. Like I said, my favorite scene from her is when she becomes Black Panther in the middle of the film, um, after meeting Killmonger. But yeah, oh my gosh, uh, there's so many great Shuri scenes in this film. I can go on and on about her. There's the scene where her mom dies. There's the scene at the end when she meets T'Challa's son, right? And realizes that she's an auntie. Uh, um, there's the scene where at the beginning of the movie when T'Challa dies, her emotion to that. There's the scene where she meets Killmonger in the ancestral plane. There's the scene where she confronts Namor and says, "I'm the Black Panther, and I'm here for retribution." Right? There's the scene where she tells Namor to yield. There's a scene where she tells when she leads the Wakanda army into the final battle against Namor's people, and she's doing the Hibambe chants that her brother once did. So many. There's the scene where she develops the heart shaped herb again. There's the scenes where her and Riley Williams have some great chemistry. There's so many great Shuri scenes in this movie. So many great scenes. And like I said, I really did love Lethea Wright and the performance he gave. And I'm even more excited to see how she continues being Black Panther going forward. But yeah, getting into some of the other characters, like Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda. Her being the queen, right? Being T'Challa's mom. She definitely stepped up. I do think if Chadwick was still alive and was in this film, I don't think Queen Ramonda's role would have been as big as it was. It probably would have been less. I do think though Queen Ramonda would have still passed. I think she was dying going into this film. There's always one big character death. That's the way the MCU formula is, right? There's usually a big car chase scene. There's usually one big death. There's the final battle. There's post credit scenes. There's things that you can expect in almost every Marvel movie, right? And of course that all leads with the climax. Queen Ramonda dying, I feel like that would have happened with T'Challa in the film. I feel like her death is a pinnacle point for Shuri, and it would have been a big point for T'Challa, right? T'Challa losing his other parent. He lost his dad in Civil War, and now losing his mom in this movie. What would that have done to the character? And her dying, it's a very, very sad scene. But I saw it coming from a mile away. You look at those characters, I didn't think Nakia or Okoye, or of course not Shuri or M'Baku. I didn't think any of them were going to pass. It made the most sense, really, that it was going to be Queen Ramonda, right? But Queen Ramonda, she definitely had an increased role in this film because of T'Challa not being there. And she does a fantastic job. Not gonna sit here and lie. She does a great job as Queen Ramonda. I think she probably deserves an Oscar nomination for her performance. There's the scene at the beginning of the movie where Queen Ramonda is confronting I think it's the United Nations, and she's talking about how they have attacked. There's been numerous attacks on the outreach centers in the U.S., and other nations secretly trying to steal Wakanda vibranium from the Wakandans. I think that's a powerful scene. And then another powerful scene is, of course, once Okoye comes back to Wakanda after losing Shuri and Riley Williams to the to Namor's people, right? That scene. Have I not given everything? Right? And she talks about how she's lost her son, she's lost her husband, right? Shuri's the only thing that she has left, and now she doesn't even know if she's alive, right? And then they also brought up how Okoye's husband, Wakabi, right? He's in jail because remember he did try to kill T'Challa in the first Black Panther movie, right? Because he sided with Killmonger. And remember, Wakabi's not in this film because of scheduling conflicts they had when they were filming the movie. And Angela Bassett, Ramona, says, "Oh, Okoye, you could see him if you so choose, right? Because he's been banished, he's in prison. But if I want to see my dad, or not my dad, but I want to see my husband and see my son, I would have to die. I have to go to the ancestral plane." And that's an emotional scene because really you can just feel that all this emotion, all this pain. Queen Ramona has had to take the throne. She had to take the throne after T'Challa's death because Shuri wasn't going to do it, you know. And she's really the only one in the bloodline that can do it outside of Shuri. So she has no choice but to be the queen. So seeing that emotional burden she carries, and then still having to lead a nation, and also having to be a parent to Shuri and try to guide her, who is still struggling with T'Challa's death a year later. It's emotional stuff. It's emotional stuff. But Angela Bassett puts on a amazing, amazing performance in this movie, and I definitely think she deserves Oscar nominations. Like I said, outside of Latila Wright, Queen Ramona puts on the best performance in this movie, easily. Getting into some of the other characters, Michael B. Jordan does return as Killmonger, and I expected this to happen, right? Because when Shuri rebuilds the heart-shaped herb, she's hoping to see either her mom or her brother in the ancestral plane to give her guidance. But instead she gets sent into this, fiery, more gritty version of Wakanda. And you can see there's the waters, like the throne room is a little bit flooded, and there's also fire everywhere. And then she walks in front of the throne, and all you see is Killmonger. And I went absolutely nuts. Even though I expected it, and most of us expected it to be Killmonger, right? It was still great to see. Michael B. Jordan, clearly he was wearing a braided wig, right? To make himself appear like he did in the first Black Panther movie. But it was a great scene, them just going at it. Yeah, and I think a lot of us would have wanted to see Killmonger get resurrected, but we knew it really would have made sense. It would have been a fan service thing. And the fact that we at least got a cameo from Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger in this film, that was great. That was great. I know some people wanted maybe they would do like a CGI T'Challa, which they could do. They do have the technology to do that. Plus, they could have also like kind of mimic his voice. There's different ways to do that, but I just feel like that would have been way too soon. I think maybe a couple years, because it's still kind of fresh, even though it's been just 2 years since Chadwick passed. It still kind of feels fresh in our hearts and our minds. So I feel like maybe down the line in Black Panther 3, that's when, it'll be maybe a little more comfortable to do it. But, we'll have to wait and see. But I expected it to be Killmonger, and it was him. And of course, maybe the line from the movie given from Killmonger, they're going at it. They're talking about their different views of the world. And Killmonger gives the quote, one of my favorite quotes now. Are you gonna be wise like your brother? Or no, are you gonna be noble like your brother? Or are you gonna take care of business like me? Amazing quote. Oh my gosh. And then of course Shuri wakes up and she refuses to tell Nakia that it was Killmonger who she saw at the ancestral plane. Even though I feel like Nakia was able to figure out just based off Shuri's actions, after that, but still I love it. I'm so glad we were at least able to get Killmonger for a couple minutes here. Maybe in the future you can still bring him back. There's ways to do it. And, of course, the multiverse, anything's possible. And I do hope we get that one day. But like I said, I was happy that we got to see Killmonger in the film. Michael B. Jordan is one of my favorite actors. He represents black excellence in my opinion. So I was happy we were able to at least get him for a little bit here. Definitely one of my favorite moments. I gotta be noble like your brother, or take care of business like me. Whew. Fire. Let's talk about Lily Williams real quick, right? Dominique Thorne, making her debut as Lily Williams or Iron Heart. She doesn't really do much. Her introduction, right, when they go to the U.S. to find a scientist that is able to build a vibranium locator machine or whatever you want to call it. They go over to, what's it called? At University in Boston, BCBU, something like that. I live here and I forget what university it was. Or, all right, no, I think it was MIT. But anyway, they head over to confront her, right? And definitely she talks like somebody my age. She talks like a college student, She has the American accent and everything. She's so here swearing, talking like, your typical, stereotypical black woman. But I loved it, And there's a lot of Easter eggs to what they did with Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man and Iron Man 1 with Ironheart here. And like I said, she doesn't do much in the film. She's more there just to push the story further, because we know that Namor's after her. We know that the FBI and the CIA are after her as well. And things of that nature. And I think that will also be explored a lot more in the Ironheart series, because once they get captured by Namor and to get back to Wakanda, she's there. She does help Shuri, with building the suit and upgrading her armor and things like that. But she doesn't get to keep the suit because it has vibranium and it's too dangerous, right? She takes that back to the US. Other people will find it, or other people will come after her to try to get their hands on vibranium. But still, I liked her in this film. I liked her. She, like I said, she doesn't do too much, but she doesn't hurt the plot in any way. She more pushes the plot forward, and I think of course, we're gonna get way more of her when she gets her own series next year, right? And I believe that's set for July in the summer on Disney Plus. So, we know where we're just getting started with Ironheart, and there's a lot more that they're gonna do with her in the future. But for the most part in this film, I liked her. And, there's a funny scene where Shuri and Riri are in the they're in this room with Namor soldiers, right? And then they start talking, and really Riri's like, you can't go with them, just like every villain in every bad movie. I started laughing my ass off. I like Rui's character, and I like Rui's character, and it's gonna be definitely interesting to see how they develop her more going forward, because she is gonna be the next Iron Man. If you've read the comics, you know what she does. I do hope that when we eventually get the Ironheart series, we'll get Robert Downey Jr. to come back as like an AI. I really, really hope they do that. Pay him whatever he needs, but. I think that's 100% what they should do. And I think they did just enough with her in this film that, you're going to be invested and you're going to care about her when we do get the Ironheart series next year. Her suits themselves, like I said earlier, the CGI on her Wakandan armor suit could have looked a little bit better. It did look wacky at times. But in terms of the first suit, right, the suit she made in her garage, it's pretty cool. It has similarities to Iron Man's first suit in the first Iron Man movie. They legit recreate the scene when Tony Stark goes up in the air and he's testing how high the suit can go into the atmosphere, and legit they recreated that scene with Riri here. A huge Easter egg there. And of course the Wakandan suit, like the design and the color scheme is cool, but I think it could have looked better from a CGI standpoint. Like I said, they do just enough with Riri here that you're excited about what they could do with her in the Ironheart series. Next up, who else? Namor Tanokoreta. I hope I'm saying his name correct. You guys know I'm not the best when it comes to name, but yes, I love Namor in this film. I did get into arguments with a couple of my friends about his motivations, even though I could kind of understand it if you're not a Namor guy from the comics, right? If you haven't read the comics, I can kind of understand like there is a little bit of confusion there with understanding his character, but for the most part, if you have read the comics, you should 100% understand Namor's motivations. Namor is not a bad guy at all. He just cares a lot about his people. If this was the Namor show or a Namor movie, right, and they were telling the story from his perspective, you would be on his side. The only reason why you root against Namor is because he's attacking the Wakandans, which those are the people you're supposed to love, right? Those are the good guys. So, from that standpoint, Namor was great. He's a great antagonist for this film. I think definitely going forward, you're going to see more of him. I would not be surprised if they have him return for Black Panther 3, especially with the ending of this movie with, Wakanda and, the Talokan coming to an agreement, right, to defend each other. I definitely think you could see him. Maybe you might even see him in Thunderbolts, right? And I definitely think you also see him in the Avengers movies. There's so much that you can do with Namor, and he is an important character. This is not a guy that you put in one or two films. This is a guy that could be a staple in the MCU for the next decade. If we're being 100% honest. Like I said, he does some badass things. I love how he flies on his with those wings on his ankles. I like Namor. I really did. Enjoyed the performance he gave. And like I said, he's not an antagonist. I mean, he's not a bad guy. He's just an antagonist who's trying to protect his people. And if you really understand his motivations, you might even sympathize with him a little bit. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, Namor in this film is great. He's great. Is he like the best antagonist ever? No, right? I think it's been very, very difficult for MCU villains to reach that next tier, right? When you think of the best MCU villains, of course, you think of Josh Brolin's Thanos. You think of Tom Hiddleston's Loki. You think of Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger, right? You think of Ultron from the Age of Ultron movie. After that, it can be difficult to pick and choose who's the best villains, right? I think those four that I just listed are like universally viewed as like the best MCU villains we've gotten. But outside that, it can be tough. I know some would probably say Hela from the Thor Ragnarok movie, but it's not easy to make a good MCU villain. It's really not. These villains are criticized heavily, just as heavily as we criticize our heroes, and it's our job to do. But in this movie, I think Namor was great. They did a great job introducing him and showcasing his powers, his people, his motivation, and the love he has for his people, that he's willing to do almost anything to protect them, right? On another side note, I think they did a great job with their with the way they depicted Talokan and its people. How they speak that ancient Mayan language, their powers. I think they did a really good job making them a show force. Because usually, especially in a lot of movies, when they introduce a new group of people that's supposed to be like an enemy or a new group that you've never seen before, right? It can be hit or miss a lot of the time. But I think many, will really enjoy what the Talokan people do in this film and their powers. And there's, like I said, there's so much more you can do in Namor going forward. I could definitely see him being in Black Panther 3. I could see him possibly being in the Thunderbolts movie. I definitely think he'll be involved in Avengers 5 and 6, right? And I would not be surprised if one day we get a Namor series, right? I know there have been talks about that, but no specifics. But I'm all in for a Namor series or a Namor movie if they wanted to do that. I think Namor's future in the MCU is bright, and this is just the start of it. I do kind of wish that they did explain why he wasn't in Infinity War or Endgame, right? I felt like that would have been kind of cool to kind of, explore how Namor reacted to having his people blimped, right? Because you have to guess that he lost half of his people when Thanos snapped. So I felt like that would have been kind of interesting to explain why Namor wasn't there, and how how he dealt with the loss of his people. But still, all in all, he's great in this film, and he does drive the plot forward. He challenges Shuri and the rest of the Wakandans, right? That scene where Queen Ramonda dies and he's talking through, and he's speaking like half English and half mine. He's like, lick your wounds, mourn your losses, you know because if I have to come back here, I will flood Wakanda. I will fully flood. He only floods it a little bit in this film to get his point across, but he's like, I will fully flood the city if I have to, if you guys refuse to join my side, right? So like I said, you understand that he's doing this for his people and their motivations, and yeah, I think all in all, they do a great job with Namor in this movie. Really do enjoy him. Definitely, I think his MCU future will be very, very bright. Moving on, next we got Denai Guerrera coming back as Okoye. Um, I think you could have done a little bit more with Okoye in this film, especially since it was a long film. Right, she is very involved in the beginning, but after she fails to bring Shuri home, after Shuri and Riri are captured by the Talokan, uh, she loses her power as the general of the Wakandan army, and we don't see too much of her until like the very end, where she gets her new suit, and things of that nature. But her passion for Wakanda, of course, is always there, and she does definitely steal scenes that she's in. Of course, her and M'Baku going back and forth is always great. Love that. But I do think they could have done a little bit more with Okoye. But it is what it is, and I do think we'll see more of Okoye, especially once we get the Okoye show or whatever. I believe she's supposed to star in one of the Wakandan spin-offs, so I definitely think there will be a lot more Okoye going forward. And who knows, maybe we'll get Wakabi to come back for that show as well, and explore their relationship a little bit more. There's a funny scene where her and Shuri, where they're in Boston, right, and they're confronting Riri Williams, and Shuri and really kind of getting on Okoye for her age, right? She is 40 in the film, but they're kind of getting on her, that she dresses a little bit older. They're making fun of her makeup and her bald head and some other things, which is pretty funny. But at the end of the film, she does get this new set of armor. I forget what the armor is called. If you've seen the film, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? And yeah, I do think if the Wakanda spin-off shows are still planned, you can do a lot more with Okoye. You can do some stuff in Wakanda. You could have Okoye have some adventures around the world, right? And I think there's a lot of people that like the Okoye character, and there's a lot that you can do with that character, going forward. Next up, next up, who am I forgetting? I'm looking at my list. Oh yes, Nakia, Nakia. T'Challa's wife and the mother of his child. She's great in this film. Of course, you wonder straight off the box why she's not why she's not at T'Challa's funeral, right? And they do explain that she was aware of T'Challa's illness, and they thought it would be better for her to stay away. They thought it would be better for her to not be at the funeral because it is revealed at the end that T'Challa has a son named after him, Prince T'Challa. And we'll talk about that in just a moment because that is a very emotional scene. But she's in Haiti. The way they call Haiti, they call it Haiti, which is wrong. My parents are from Haiti. I am Haitian American myself. I speak the language. I understand the language. It's Haiti or Haiti. It's using one of those two. But still, it is kind of funny. They call it Haiti, you know. But she is in Haiti, basically raising her son, right, staying away. But she comes back to help Wakanda, and then I think they did a good job with her because they really just showed that she had a love for T'Challa that was outside of her, T'Challa's family, right, with Shuri and Queen Ramonda. She really loved this man, and like T'Challa was her world, right. I think they do a really good job, a really, really good job with Nakia, like displaying that. Because she is the one she saves Shuri and Riri from Namor halfway through the film. She's there for the final battle as well. All this while raising a son secretly away from Wakanda, a guy that's going to be the future king. She also helps Shuri, in making the new Black Panther suit. So I think they did a really good job with Nakia here. I think they did a better job with Nakia than they did with Okoye, in my opinion. I didn't know how much Nakia we were going to get in this film. But we get a lot, from her. And she definitely steals the show. Love Nakia. Love Nakia. I wish she was Haitian myself, because, that Haitian. Anyway, yeah. And probably the last character, two characters. We have Everett K. Ross, right? Martin Freeman comes back as Agent Ross in this film, and of course he works for the CIA, but he has a lot of friends. He in Wakanda. Remember, T'Challa saved his life in the first Black Panther movie, so he always feels in debt to them, and he has a love and appreciation for them. But that relationship he has with Wakanda does get him in trouble because it is revealed. I forget what's the name of his ex-wife. It's that. Oh yeah, Valentina, right? It's revealed that his ex-wife is Valentina, and she's been secretly spying on Ross. And it's revealed that she becomes the new CIA director, and she actually turns on her ex-husband and gets him sent to prison, basically for treason, right? Because Ross has been slipping information to the Queen, to Wakanda, which is treason to the U.S., which is considering going to war with Wakanda. Right, Everett's trying to play, the middle ground, but it gets him in trouble. Of course, at the end of the film, which was to no surprise, we see Okoye save Ross. My favorite colonizer. A colonizer in chains. I have seen it all. Funny stuff. But we see that they save Ross, and it looks like he's probably going back to Wakanda. With Okoye in them because it makes no sense for him to stay in the U.S. He would just be on the run since he's basically a fugitive now, right? So definitely I can see in Black Panther 3 in the future him being in Wakanda. Anyway. Then, and of course, I'll say about Valentina, right? They are setting her up to have a big role in the future of the MCU. It's clear. You've seen her in Captain America and the Winter Soldier, right? You've seen her in the Black Widow movie. I don't think she was in Hawkeye, but I could be wrong. But you also see her in this movie as well, and now she has all this power. I think she's the new CIA director, right? Clearly, they are setting her up for a huge future. huge future. I think a lot of this will be pushed in the Thunderbolts movie, right? But clearly they are, they're giving her more and more power in every single project that she's in. And I hope that, this all leads to a big, a big splash. Maybe, I don't know if she's set to be in Secret Invasion in a couple months, but still, there's a lot to look forward to with her. And I just hope they deliver, right? Because I'm not super invested in the character, but I do, of course, acknowledge that she has a huge MCU role to play going forward. Moving on. Moving on. Who am I forgetting? Yes. Our boy Winston Duke Mibaku. Mafa. Mibaku is my MVP of this movie. Yes, he doesn't really get a lot of screen time, but he steals the show in every scene that he's in. I absolutely love Mibaku in this film. I love him. I just wish we got more of him, right? He was considered to be the next Black Panther, but we all knew it had to be Shuri. I could definitely see something in Black Panther 3 where maybe we get two Black Panthers. We get like Mibaku in one suit and Shuri in her suit, but who knows? But still, Mibaku's come such a long way since we first met him in Black Panther 1, right? First when he's leading the Japarai, I'm saying his name. The Jabari, sorry, I was saying that wrong. The Jabari, and he challenged T'Challa for the throne, right? They make you think he's an antagonist, but he's really not. He's really not. In the comics, yeah, he is an antagonist, but here in the MCU, he's not an antagonist, and he gains that healthy respect for T'Challa after T'Challa defeats him in battle without his powers, right? And then he helps T'Challa, of course, near the end of the film. He saves T'Challa's life after T'Challa's presumed dead after his battle with Killmonger, saves his life, and then he also fights alongside T'Challa at the end of the movie. Then we see the Jabari clan. They have more of a presence going forward after that, because now we all know at the beginning of Black Panther 1, the Jabari, they're separate, right? They're separate from the rest of Wakanda. They live in the mountains and the snowy hills, but they appear more in the city in this movie. And of course, if you've seen Infinity War, he fights alongside T'Challa when they're going up against Thanos' army. He's there in Endgame fighting against Thanos' army once again. And of course, he has a huge role in this movie as well. Especially he's so funny. The scene where I've been saying this to all my friends. The scene where he calls Okoye you bald-headed demon, and he's just eating a carrot walking around the throne room is absolutely hilarious. When Queen Ramana asks him what they should do about Namor, and he just comes out and say, we should kill him. We should kill him. What will keep him from coming back here? Oh my gosh. Then later in the film, after Nakia brings Shuri and Riri to Wakanda, right? Brings Shuri home. He's like, oh, Nakia has saved Wakanda once again. She will be rewarded with another banishment. It's just hilarious. The scene where he goes up against Namor, who's covered in vibranium armor, breaks M'Baku's staff and punches him right through the chest. For a second there, I was scared M'Baku was gonna get killed, but they didn't, thank God. And then afterwards, right, there's even more great scenes of M'Baku. I feel like just going through them all. Afterwards, after the death of Queen Ramada and Shuri's mourning now the loss of her mother, you see M'Baku's giving guidance, right? Giving guidance to Shuri. How she promised T'Challa, or how he promised T'Challa that he would watch over Shuri if anything happened. You can see M'Baku's character has come full forward here, right? And he serves as a guide and a mentor to Shuri in this film. Really, because M'Baku, even though he's funny and he plays around, he's highly intelligent. Very, very intelligent, very, very smart guy who cares about his people, who cares about Wakanda, right? And then, of course, I love the scene where I've already said this when Shuri becomes Black Panther and then she arm wrestles M'Baku. At first, it looks like they're like holding hands, or like, they're about to do like a handshake or a bro shake, right? But they're actually having an arm wrestle. And M'Baku stops Shuri uh, before Shuri can defeat him. And then M'Baku's like, the Black Panther lives! Very, very good stuff. And then M'Baku and Shuri going at it over what they should do with Namor, right? And then the end of the film, the final battle, M'Baku is very proud of Shuri for not letting revenge and anger take her over, right? And actually doing the right thing when it comes to dealing with Namor. And then the final scene, right at the end, M'Baku becomes king of Wakanda, and that was my prediction. That was one of my predictions. It doesn't make sense for Shuri to be queen. It's not her nature. It's not her character, right? It would make the most sense for Shuri to become the Black Panther here, and for M'Baku to become king, because he's already the leader of the Jabari clan, and he's already, challenged for the throne once. It would make perfect sense for him to be the king of Wakanda, and I could definitely see something in like Black Panther 3 or an Avengers film or whatever, a future project where we see M'Baku challenges, or M'Baku and Shuri fight together. We see like double Black Panther action. I think if Chadwick was alive, they would have done that, right? But I felt like if Chadwick was alive and we got a Black Panther 3, we would see both Shuri and T'Challa in Black Panther suits going up against whoever's the enemy there. But instead, I think that, in Black Panther 3, it will be M'Baku and Shuri, teaming up in Black Panther suits against whoever is the enemy. But still, either way, as much as I would have loved more M'Baku, he steals the show in every single scene that he's in. And to me, he's easily the MVP of this film. Excuse me, outside of, Shuri, Queen Ramonda, and Namor. I love M'Baku. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite MCU characters. Like, for real, I love this guy. Part of me wishes we can get, like, just a M'Baku show. I feel like that would be very, very popular. But, like I said, this is, that's my thoughts on that. But for the most part here, man, this is a really, really good film. I will say one negative I do have. I wish there was a little bit more action, right? When Shuri becomes Black Panther, right, she does kick ass, and she has like a completely different fighting style than what T'Challa had when he was Black Panther, right? Because Shuri's a little bit smaller. She's a little more flexible, her fighting style is a little bit different. She uses more athletic moves than what T'Challa would do. But still, I do wish we got a little bit more action. I feel like they could have done a little bit more with the Namor Shuri final battle. It's a good final battle. I'm not saying it's bad, but I felt like they could have made it longer and done a little bit more action with that. But still, that's just me nitpicking a little bit. I do think that hurt the film just a little bit because, of course, the story was there, but this is a Marvel movie, so you expect great action. So I wish there was a little more action, just a little bit. But still, all in all, I do think this was a really, really good film that will, as of right now, it will sit, at number 8 in my top 10. We'll see how this film, how the legacy of this film grows. Of course, it's smashing the box office right now. No surprise there. It will continue to dominate the box office for the next couple weeks up until, of course, the Avatar movie comes out. And the Avatar movie will dominate, the box office till early next year, probably until the Ant-Man movie comes out in February. But still, we'll see. We'll see where this movie stays. Will it stay in my top 10? I hope. But my top 10 could look a lot different next year because we have some bangers coming out as we start Phase 5. We got Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm just talking about movies. We got Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania with Kang the Conqueror. We have the Marvels movie coming out. We also have, what else? I'm forgetting a couple other projects. um, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And I think I'm forgetting one more, but still, we have some bangers coming out next year. So it's a good time to be an MCU fan, and definitely this was a great way to end Phase 4. Definitely a great film that honors T'Challa's legacy. Last thing I want to speak about before I get out of here, Prince T'Challa, right? T'Challa's son, his legacy has been established, right? We get Prince T'Challa revealed at the post credit scene. Shuri gets to meet his her nephew. And it was, I don't know how they picked that actor, because that actor looks so much like Chadwick. It's ridiculous, and he has that Chadwick smile and that charisma, and he's cute as hell, and like I said, I'm also I feel like it's awesome because, we get to see, this guy. He's Haitian. He's not only Wakandan, but he's Haitian because he was born in Haiti, right? And he's raised in Haitian culture. And you actually see him earlier in the film when Queen Ramonda first comes to visit Nakia in Wakanda. You see, the boy running up to the queen, and the queen's actually holding his hand, and so. It's like a blink and you miss moment, but you actually realize after seeing the film and going back and seeing it a second time, that was actually, T'Challa's son. So, and remember, there is a scene early in the film where Queen Ramonda is telling Shuri, like, there's something I never told you about, your son, or about, your brother, right? And then Ramonda dies, and you're like, at first you're like, wait, what was Ramonda going to tell Shuri? But she's dead. But it was actually, Queen Ramonda never told Shuri about T'Challa's son, right? Even though she knew T'Challa's son. But still, it's an emotional scene. I absolutely love it. He has a Haitian name, which hits home for me, being a Haitian myself. His name is Toussaint, which is a famous Haitian name in Haiti culture. I love how he says, I heard you're good at keeping secrets. Is that true? My Haitian name is Toussaint, but my Wakanda name is Prince T'Challa, son of King T'Challa. And it's like, bang, bang. Like, here it is, the continuation of T'Challa's legacy, the continuation of the Black Panther legacy. Of course, yes, at this point in the film, he's 6 years old, so he was born right around Infinity War, and that had to be hard for Nakia to lose T'Challa twice, but still, of course, when Black Panther 3 comes around, he'll be a little bit older. He'll probably be more around like 9-10 years old, but he won't be ready, of course, to take the throne from like M'Baku yet. Right, that might not be done for years until like a Black Panther 4, if we get there one day, God willing. But clearly, eventually Prince T'Challa, he'll, grow up to eventually become King T'Challa and do exactly what his dad did, right? And, I think that is great. I think the way they continued T'Challa's legacy and honored it as well is great. I even mentioned how at the beginning of the film, after T'Challa's funeral, you get that quiet, Marvel Chadwick intro, right, with no music. That is emotional. That was a very emotional way to start the film. But like I said, I think they did a great job of honoring T'Challa's legacy at the beginning with his funeral, and then at the end when Shuri is doing that ritual and remembering her brother, and kind of this, making peace with he's gone but not forgotten. And then, of course, the introduction of T'Challa's son. All in all, I think this was a great film. But yeah, I definitely wanted to go in depth and give you guys my thoughts on the movie. But outside of that, that's about all I got for you guys today. Let me know in the comment section what was your thoughts on Marvel Studios' Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Did you guys like the film? If you guys didn't, let me know why. But all in all, thank you guys so very much for the love and the support. Definitely, this was fun. Definitely wanted to take some time to sit down and talk with you guys about the film. But yeah, like I said, have an amazing Thanksgiving weekend, guys. Spend time with your family and your loved ones. eat some good food. But yeah, let me know in the comment section what you guys thought of the film. But other than that, I will see you guys later. Stay safe and healthy, y'all. Peace.